Yeah, so many people are requesting me to start Ansible session. Yeah, sorry guys, it will take some time. So totally 70 people have been enrolled to this session and I'm waiting for 30 more, and just I want to confirm you regarding that is the reason I created this video. And before that, so many people are telling what are the prerequisites for the DevOps. So that is the reason I am creating this tutorial, so it might helpful for the new people who don't know the knowledge of Linux. And let us see an overview of Linux for DevOps engineers. So whether you are a fresher or you are an experienced candidate moving into the DevOps, adding Linux to your skill set might helps you a lot. And don't worry, it is easy to learn. Once you understand why it's important to learn Linux for DevOps, once you learn about the basic concepts, you will be able to on the way to becoming a pro. And Linux is used everywhere in DevOps. So better you understand it, the more you feel comfortable, the better you become. And why Linux for DevOps? Why it is needed Linux for DevOps? So many people are asking nowadays. So let me tell you, like, why it is important to learn Linux if you are a cloud or a DevOps engineer. A lot of open source projects, especially DevOps tools, were designed to run on Linux from the start. Git was born out of Linux kernel. So nowadays you can run Docker and Git on other platforms like Mac and Windows operating systems, but still a lot of new technologies start on Linux itself. So many organizations prefer Linux operating system rather than Windows. So that is the reason we need to learn Linux, and especially if they are related to software development or managing infrastructure, they use Linux itself only. And Ansible, a tool for managing servers, originally started on Linux too. And Kubernetes is also a Linux project. And let us discuss, like, is it hard to learn Linux? So it's not difficult to learn Linux basics like logging on into a server, creating and editing a file. This is good enough for DevOps engineer. And let us see like some basic commands of Linux. So how to create a file in Linux? So you will create a file in Windows, right? How you will create in Windows? Just by right clicking, you will select new and folder. But in Linux we use terminal. Let us see some basic, like in Linux we use touch command. Touch devops dot txt. You can see new file has been created. If you want to create a folder on Linux operating system, the command is mkdir devops easy. So you can give any name. Mkdir is nothing but make directory, and just enter. Then you can see a folder was created. So rather than right clicking new folder, it will be very easy, right? It will be time saving for you as well as for the organizations. So that is the reason majority of organizations prefer Linux. So it will be very easy, right? In the terminal only you can able to create a files. And if you want to see the list of the files, just you need to enter like what are the total files in this directory. In UI you can able to see the like this, but in Linux you only have a terminal access. In order to see, you need to enter ls, then you will get how many files. If you want to briefly see ls-l, then the d, you can see here d is nothing but directory. If you see dash, it is a file. So if you see and d, it is nothing but a directory is nothing but a folder. In Windows we call it as a folder, but in Linux we call it as a directory. Hope you understand. And these are the basic things just you want to learn in Linux. Then after you can be an expert in Linux as well. So these are the basic things that is needed. and have like written briefly for you, and you can look over it. And in Linux there is Linux kernel. So what is a Linux kernel? Like for human being there is a brain, right? The brain will work, so brain will operate the our body. So Linux is the brain of a Linux operating system. Sorry, the kernel is the brain of Linux operating system. It's what make all Linux systems runs happily in the background. So because of our brain we work, right? So in the same way, because of the kernel, Linux will work, and you probably don't even know it's there. And Linux manages your memory and devices. So brain will manage our hands, legs and all. In the same way, kernel manages your memory and devices and provides the foundation of application to run. And in Linux these are called as processes. Without the kernel you probably would not be able to do anything. So let us discuss how this Linux word has came to the world. So like the name Linux refers to the kernel. So it was first created by a guy called as the founder of Linux is Linus Torvald. So his name is embedded into a word called Linux. So people used to call Linus. So they just calling Linus, then after they it converted to Linux. So in fact Linux is registered trademark for Linus himself. So he just created his name. He just in the like in the name of S he just kept X. So he just given a new name called as Linux and he registered that name. In Linux there will be a package managers. When you want to install any software, right, any install programs in Windows, we will have a .exe file to install and softwares. In the same way in Linux we have a package manager. When you want to install programs on your Linux operating system, you generally use a package manager. So the package manager can search online for software to download and download the right files and then install them for you. And there are different flavors in Linux. There is an Ubuntu and there is an CentOS. For Ubuntu we use apt package manager, and for CentOS or Red Hat we use yum package manager. And what is a shell? There is called as shell in Linux. Shell is nothing but whatever the commands we execute, right, in this terminal. This terminal is called as shell. So shell is part of Linux where you will run commands. So it's like your driving seat. So for car we have a seat, right, driving seat. It is like also a driving seat. This is the place where you issue instructions and run scripts. So when you log on to Linux you start a shell or terminal. So terminal is nothing but this. You can start a shell in Linux or Docker containers. And there are few different shells in Linux. The most common one being in famous or bash. So every Linux they use bash terminals. And what are the Linux distributions available? So and what are the important distributions for Devops engineer? So many organizations will use Red Hat Linux and CentOS and Fedora and Amazon Linux. So these are the main operating system where companies are utilizing. And I hope you understand this video, and if you want this document I will share you, and I will update in my GitHub. I will share you the link in the description of this video. If you want this video, just let me know. I will update it, and please maintain like some patience. I will start an Ansible sessions. I will explain briefly how I am explaining regarding Linux basics, right. I will explain the Ansible in practical manner, and I will try to start next coming week, that is before August 15th. So before Independence Day I will try to start this batch, and it will be a daily 1 hour session, that is from after 6 p.m. It may be 7 to 8 p.m. or it may be 6 to 7:30 p.m. like that I am planning. and please let me know at which time you will be available in the comment section after 6 p.m. so it might helpful for me then. And yeah, please subscribe to this channel. After completion of this course, if I get at least 100 subscribers, I will upload every video, whatever the class total class videos, I will upload it. And thank you guys. Let us meet in the next video or in the next session, like whenever I start the Ansible, right? Let us meet there. And thank you guys, and be safe, stay home and stay safe.